Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I've got another read through here of the next chapter in Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. We're up to chapter 45 entitled Shadesmar. This is a very long, I say very long, it's a long chapter for a Brandon Sanderson work, about 20 pages. And things really come to a head in this chapter. So the first half of the chapter really is Shallan speaking with Yasna. She's still just really torn. She doesn't want to leave. She has grown to love her studies. She's grown to appreciate Yasna with all of her harshness and even oftentimes offensiveness, the way that she views the world, her almost elitist mindset. But she's come to understand that even though maybe how Yasna goes about doing things isn't how Shallan would do it, what she's trying to get at is truth and reality. And Shallan's really grown to respect that. They're studying, Shallan's studying her own things, and she knows because she's going to leave so soon, if she wants some of these answers, she's really going to need to start pushing. So they're studying together, they're reading on the Palanaeum, and Shallan kind of begins asking questions about Voidbringers and Urithiru, the famed ancient city of the Lost Radiance. And Shallan's kind of answering some of those questions, which, forgive me, Yasna's answering some of those questions, which Shallan is kind of surprised about, but eventually she kind of pushes it a little too far, and Yasna's like, look, we're done. Go back to your studies. Why are you asking all these questions? And so Shallan sort of comes up with an excuse to excuse herself. She needed a copy of Tiffendor's biography of the dead King Gavilar, Yasna's dad. And that's kind of what she has her studying currently, the history of Gavilar's death. And Shallan kind of notices something that nobody else really noticed. While she's reading about Gavilar's explorations across Roshar, when he really first comes across these Parshendi that ultimately will kill him, there's a few notes in some of these biographies about how King Gavilar's interests suddenly changed. Before he met these Parshendi, he was only motivated by fighting, by conquest, by war, like most Alethi soldiers. After he meets this Parshendi and speaks for a while, even Dalinar, when they're out there on the Shattered Plains together, meeting these Parshendi, Dalinar is like, why are we talking to these creatures? We should either subdue them or kill them. It's kind of how Dalinar views the world. And post meeting these Parshendi, Gavilar is interested in philosophy. He's interested in history. He's interested in science. And Yasna makes kind of the note that, like, Shallan noticed that in these readings, and no one else really had noticed those before. And then she sort of makes the comment, like, that was the closest that I ever felt with my father before he died. Shallan excuses herself. She goes not to look up this edition of a book by Tiffendor, but to do a little bit more digging on the Voidbringers, on Urithiru, on the Lost Radiance. And she's going down and she's looking for books, and she's there for a little while, a couple hours. And Kabsal meets her down there. He had heard that she was down looking for books, and so he, of course, goes and meets her. They begin speaking, and Shallan just sort of really blurts out, like, I'm leaving Kabsal, and I don't know if I'll be back. And she can just tell immediately Kabsal is crushed. He offers to go with her, and she doesn't jump on that opportunity. Even though he's willing to give up everything to be with her, that even gives her more anxiety. Why don't I feel as strong, apparently, about him as he feels about me? And so they sort of speak about back and forth plans. He's asking questions about why, what's wrong? Is it your family? Is it your father? And she's getting even more and more anxious and nervous. And so kind of he realizes that he's not going to be able to convince her of things. So he sort of removes himself, but has one final request. would you draw a portrait of me? You've drawn everybody else, it seems. And she's like, of course I will. So they rush back up to Jasnah. She brings that book by Tiffendorf, just in case Jasnah asked. She sits down to draw him. She does a great job, of course. And then he has one more request. He pays her a brome that she feels very uncomfortable taking. He says, no, but I want you to draw us together. So she gets a mirror, puts it beside him, gets a frame of reference. She can see herself in the mirror and begins to draw both of them together. Jasnah's not really interested at this point. She's doing her own thing. But as she's thinking through all of these issues, all of these things, everything that's going on, she's getting more and more worked up. You remember several chapters ago when she is drawing the picture of the king, and she draws these horrifying looking beings behind him. Well, it happens again. There's these, like, they're in robes, they're tall, but where their faces should be, there's all these like geometric shapes, it looks like, seemingly moving and swirling around, and it's terrifying. And she sees some of these that she's drawn. I mean, she immediately freaks out. Where are these creatures? All of these things begin to mount. She jumps out of the chair. She just essentially like, I'm sorry, I have to go. She just runs away. And as she's running, she like sort of finds her way out of the Palanaeum and like breathes. And while she's still thinking of things, she's panicking, thinking like, what are these things? Are these things following me? Well, she looks around and she just sort of lets her mind begin to draw. That seems to be the only way that she can see whatever these creatures are. And sure enough, the scene behind her that she's turned around and drawn, she sees now like 5 of these beings. She begins running again. She begins fleeing as fast as she can. What is wrong with her? She keeps asking herself. It must be the stress. It must be what's happening. Well, she finds her way back into Jasnah's room. Her little area is connected to Jasnah's. You'll remember that. Locks the door, sits down on her bed, and like kind of breathes a sigh of relief. And then she decides, I better be sure. So she sort of takes a picture with her brain, begins drawing again. And sure enough, all around her bed are these creatures with these geometric shaped heads floating. And she loses it, right? She screams, she reaches out as like defensively, and actually thinks she feels something in the air, even though she can't see anything. And here's where it really gets interesting. Like, number one, what is happening? What are these creatures? Why can't she see them, but she can draw them? Like, what's happening here? Here's where it gets really intense. Right towards the end of it, so the chapter ends on page 645, we're on page 643, we're right towards the end of the chapter. I mean, she just shouts out like, oh, Stormfather, right? She's terrified. And she wants to grab something to defend herself. So she reaches into her pouch to grab the Soulcaster, seemingly the only thing that could maybe be used as some type of defensive weapon, right? And then she remembers like, oh no, of course, like, I don't know how to use this. And here's something we read that is almost unbelievable that we read it. No, that was stupid about the Soulcaster. She didn't even know how to use it. She was helpless. Except, and here's a sentence, storms, she thought, frantic, I can't use that. I promised myself. The reader asks, what are we talking about? She began the process anyway. 10 heartbeats to bring forth the fruit of her sin, the proceeds of her most horrific act. But she was interrupted midway through by a voice, uncanny and yet distinct. What are you? Okay, We know what happens when you reach your hand out and you are waiting for 10 seconds for something to form in your hand, right? A shard blade. Shallan has the ability to summon a shard blade, and she has used one before. What she calls here the fruit of her sin, the proceeds of her most horrific act. At some point in Shallan's past, she is able to summon a shard blade, and she's used it on something or someone. And this voice interrupts the process. She stops summoning the blade. What are you? Well, naturally, she falls off the bed because that's what you do when you hear a voice. She answers, "What am I? I'm terrified." And we get a response. This is true. And in that moment, the entire room transforms in the blink of an eye. No longer is she looking at the bedroom, the four walls, the bed, the nightstand. No longer is she looking at that. Where is she? It like a pop, everything turned dark. And where there was things, there now are dark glass spheres all around. And there's no longer like floor beneath her. It seems like there's like an ocean of these glass spheres. Have you ever been in a ball pit, right? You know, the little plastic balls that you jump in and kind of swim and play around? That's kind of what you need to imagine. And she screams, "Where am I?" She looks around. There's a black sky, a strange small white sun that is way too far away on the horizon. There's flames hovering around here, dozens of them, perhaps even hundreds. And she hit something, an endless dark sea, except it wasn't wet. It was made of these small black beads. She's flailing, she's trying to stay afloat. We hear the voice again. "You want me to change?" The warm voice said in her mind. And this is different from the cold whisper that she'd heard otherwise. So this is some type of different voice now. "You want me to change?" it asks. The warm voice continues, "I've been as I am for a great long time. I sleep so much. I will change. Give me what you have." And Shallan is losing her ever-loving mind at this point, right? "I don't know what you mean. Please just help me." "I will change." And suddenly she felt really cold, as if the warmth was being drawn out of her. She screams, and her fingers flared with a sudden warmth. She was holding one of these beads. She drops it, sort of clatters into the other beads, and in that moment, she sort of like snaps back to reality, right? She collapses back on the headboard of her bed. She's back in the room. There's no longer glass beads everywhere. However, there was a goblet on the bedstand, the nightstand. But no longer is it a goblet. This has been transformed into red liquid blood. So this metal goblet has been transformed into red liquid blood. And she begins to freak out now even more. That was soul casting. I soul casted that from a solid into blood. And this is one of the 10 essences that you can soul cast. Blood is one of the things that things can be soul cast into. It's kind of interesting. And we kind of get a little bit of that in earlier chapters. We'll get more details about this in the future. She did it. And yet she realizes something kind of important. She never put on the soul caster that was in her pouch. "I didn't put it on," she thought, "yet I used it anyway. At this point, she hears a voice. This is no longer that warm voice nor that cold voice that asked her what she was. This is Jasnah's voice outside the door. When she freaked out and ran away, leaving Capsule and leaving her there, Jasnah followed her. Like, what is her problem? We hear her voice at the door. Now Shallan panics even more. She's going to look. She's going to see blood on the ground. Jasnah is a soul caster. She knows one of these 10 essences. She's going to know that I've done this. So she jumps off the bed. She looks around frantically, and she makes a decision. She reaches down, grabs one of the glass shattered things that fell off the nightstand with the blood, and there was this sort of glass goblet, and she pulls up her sleeve and she slashes it across her arm. With the anxiety and the adrenaline running, it doesn't even hurt, but blood begins to kind of pour out from her arm, from her wound. She falls down on the ground, pretending as if she's now passed out. She's very conscious, and the door flings open. Jasnah comes in. She screams. She sees this horrible scene of blood everywhere. We know it's not all Shallan's. She rushes over. She grabs her, tries to console her. And Shallan is there, gripping the safe pouch, even while she's pretending to be unconscious, holding this soulcaster close. And the last sort of sentence we got, when everyone now is rushing in, guards and parshmen and doctors probably, this, Shallan thought, will not end well. My goodness gracious, what is happening in this chapter? This chapter is entitled Shadesmar. We aren't given any explanation of what that means. We'll find out in upcoming chapters. But Shallan has taken a step now into a whole new world, literally, where there's darkness and beads and voices and floating flames and apparently things that can change from one thing to another. She's soulcast a goblet into blood. She's panicked. She's freaking out. She sees these beings with geometric heads that terrify her. Where is she going to go from here? How is she going to be able to talk her way out of this? And perhaps the most shocking revelation is that Shallan has the ability to summon a shard blade. So much happens in this chapter. We're introduced to so much. Definitely, for me, one of my favorite chapters so far in the book. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll look forward to continuing the read through with you in the next video, the next chapter. So I hope you are enjoying Way of Kings. Brandon Sanderson is an incredible author. One thing we didn't talk about was that Shallan and Capsule have this back and forth talking about the Voidbringers. They talk about Vorinism, and you can see Brandon Sanderson's philosophy degree coming out there. They're going back and forth about the reality, the good, the bad. How did evil get here if the Almighty is all pure and perfect? So there's a lot in here, but that's all the time we have for today. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying these videos. If you're interested, you can like and subscribe. We'll continue reading through every chapter, every interlude, everything about the Way of Kings. We're going to try to talk about it as much as we can. So we'll get back together in the next video. Enjoy reading and take care.